Welcome to the podcast Hot Tracks with Cold Liquids, where we discuss the history, lyrics, and music of our favorite albums while drinking the best beverages. Each episode, one of us submits an album which we add to an ongoing ranking. At the end of the year, we will tally up each of our total scores to determine unequivocally which one of us has the best taste in music.
This week we'll be talking about the album Close to the Edge by Yes. It was released in 1972 by Atlantic Records. It features John Anderson on vocals, Chris Squire on the bass, Bill Bruford on drums, Steve Howe on guitar, and the legendary keyboardist Rick Wakeman. This marks the end of the original lineup of Yes because Bill Bruford found this album too intense to record and joined King Crimson later that year and did not tour with the band for this album and was replaced by Alan White, who just died I think a week or two ago, actually. It features the massive 18-minute title track, Close to the Edge, and the lyrics on that song are inspired by Siddhartha by Hermann Hesse. The album achieved critical and commercial success and remains one of the most famous albums of the prog rock genre. It appears on the Rolling Stone Greatest Albums list of all time, and it was certified platinum in the 90s, I think, after selling 1 million copies.
That's pretty neat.
Yeah.
So I guess before we start discussing the album, whether it's a yes or a no, I have to ask, what are we sipping, boys?
Just water this time. I know it's boring, but sometimes you just got to stick to the basics.
Yeah, same.
Oh, you just have water too?
Yeah.
No, I have another basic, a Coca-Cola 0 calorie.
Yeah, I've got water too. I'm in the middle of nowhere, and I have access to no other beverages this week, so I'll pick something up for the next week.
Well, we should have all coordinated that we were going to drink water.
Yeah, hydrate or dihydrate.
I mean, Coke Zero, it basically is water.
Yeah, and high fructose corn syrup. Probably microplastics as well. Microplastics.
Part of this nutritious breakfast.
The lead of this generation.
Yeah.
Oops. All microplastics. So, what do everybody think about this album overall?
This has got to be one of my favorites. I'm curious to see what you all think, but I love this album. It's a little hard to interpret, especially lyrically. Kind of just got to go in on vibes, I guess. But there's some great vibes.
Yeah, I had no idea what any of the lyrics in this album meant. Even after pulling up the genius.com.
Yeah.
I was like, this makes no sense. It's all just vibes. But I like the vibes, you know? It was pretty good.
It was a bit proggy for me.
Okay.
But not in a bad way. It just was, you know? It was very, very prog rock. But the musical aspect of it was very good, I thought.
Oh, yeah, totally. The lyrics being weird is not a huge surprise from Yes. That's just kind of how they roll. Their lyrics rarely make any sense. I will say, so the lyrics are based, like I said, on the novel Siddhartha. I read the book. I did my research for this one, and it did make a lot more sense. I guess it's just kind of about the journey to enlightenment, because that's what the book is about. So a lot of the lyrics are just spiritual in nature, and the stuff about the river makes a lot more sense after reading the book. Basically, that's where the main character achieves enlightenment. Spoiler alert. I mean, it's 100-year-old book, so if you haven't read it, that's on you. But
well, I was gonna read the book, and then so I'm in the process of moving, and the book is at the very bottom of my boxes, so I would have to grab everything and hopefully be able to find the book. So I did not read it, even
Yeah.
though I did have a 3-day weekend. So I could have just slammed down all 100 something pages, but I didn't. So I took a fat L because he just spoiled the book for me.
I will say, I have a question for you guys to address the elephant in the room. What are you guys' thoughts on the 18-minute song?
It really doesn't bother me, honestly. I mean, I guess that's no surprise because I said I love this, but it's a prog rock album, and I don't think that that's that uncommon for the genre, and I don't think that it overstays its welcome either. It's definitely something where you have to be in the right mood to listen to it. You're not gonna just like take the aux and play this 18-minute song at a party or something, or maybe you do. I don't know.
That'd be pretty hype.
So 18 minutes, that's a long time. Just in perspective, that's like almost a whole episode of The Simpsons that you're just listening to this. Like 18 minutes is not like a novel amount of time. So it was hard to get through at times. I think that's a problem with the whole genre of prog rock. It's not as bad as Thick as a Brick, which is just one song that's 40 minutes long, which I do actually kind of like that album. But I think the thing that made this album maybe a little better, and it's going to be more favorable in my assessment, is that it's only 37 minutes long.
Yeah.
Some of the problems with prog rock, especially of this era, is that they make all of their songs like 10 minutes long, and the album is like an hour 30 minutes. So they're just always a slog to get through, and every like low point feels even lower because it lasts for like 30 minutes.
Yeah.
Honestly, I didn't mind. I thought the 18 minutes went by pretty quick. My problem with it is like the song is like very clearly separated into movements. And so I just don't understand why they didn't just break it up. And that makes me think it's more of like a statement like, oh, we're not going to like we're not trying to get a single off this album. Like we're not gonna break it up. We're just gonna make it. But then it's like if you're gonna do that, why not make it like Thick in the Brick and make it get one song? I don't know.
They actually did release a single off of this album.
What was it?
Part 1 and 2 of You and I was a single, which was so weird. And I listened to it with that, and I don't even think it works that well. But they did it.
I really liked
a single.
Honestly, I really liked And You and I, and the third track on the album too. By like the fourth or fifth time I was listening to this, I skipped the first track, and not because I didn't like it, and not even because it's 18 minutes, because I really like the last two songs on this album better. They're just better.
Wow, that surprises me. At least early on, I was more the opposite, where I was like, oh, if I'm listening to this album, like that song is the album to me in some ways. Like,
I don't know, but I like it in terms of like thinking of it as like almost a symphony and having these movements and kind of like we were talking about last week with Smile. Like those elements work really well on it. I love the like repeated motifs and the repeated lyrics and like using them in a different musical motif to convey a different meaning, and like I think all that's really cool, and I thought it was cool on Smile, and I think it's cool on this album too.
They could have split the movements up into different tracks, but I don't know if they really have to. It like clearly is meant to be listened to in one sitting, like as a LP. So, especially because this would have been like a record too, you're probably gonna just like play the side.
But also, like, I don't know. Like, sometimes I kind of want to know where I am.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
Sometimes I would just be like 12 minutes through the Close to the Edge, and I'm like, I don't know how much time's like left in the song.
I have a very similar takeaway, and the fact that in the song around like the 12-minute mark, I always think it's over, and I look whenever a song ends, I look at my phone, which I'm listening to it on, I'm like, okay, what's the name of this song now? And I'm like, oh boy, I have 6 minutes left of this. So it, even though, okay, to be fair to this album, it is some of the most approachable prog rock because of how like short it is. And it also feels like there is different songs.
Yeah.
It's not like as much as I do like it, Wish You Were Here by Pink Floyd, Shine On You Crazy Diamond, like part 1 through a million, just feels like the same song. Like you don't know when the next part is going to happen. But with this, I think it's a lot more poppy, which might be a statement that people will disagree with.
I kind of agree with you. Like, it's definitely more palatable than most prog rock, except I'd say like Jethro Tull is probably more palatable. But I think also that goes along with like the music's just really catchy. Like, it's just really good music. The keyboard on this album is ridiculous. It is absolutely just a blast to listen to, and easily my favorite part of the album.
Yes is definitely known for being one of the more accessible bands for people getting into prog rock. They have some more like pop sentiments that makes it a lot easier to listen to, and especially on first listen, it's like, wow, you know, this I love the refrain, the close to the edge, down by the water.
Yeah.
It's really beautiful, and they write some really pretty harmonies for the lyrics and stuff. I love that.
I think this was a good follow-up to Roundabout as well. But I almost wonder, like, if they made this album because of the commercial success of Roundabout, they were like, well, now we have to, like, make a really proggy album. I don't know.
Yeah, I think that's accurate. This was supposed to be a follow-up to Fragile, which I think was released the year before.
Yeah, it was 71.
Yeah.
Well, and honestly, that's kind of insane that like they can, because I have listened to Fragile before. I hadn't listened to this album yet, but it's pretty insane that they can like write Fragile and then turn around and write this album within a year.
Yeah.
That's pretty crazy for the amount of like very, very complex like rhythms and musical elements in this in these songs.
Yeah.
That's pretty impressive. And that's one thing that always blows my mind about prog rock is like just how musically complex it is and interesting.
It takes things to the next level. And when I see things written about this, that they talk about the band, yes, like composing this album, not writing it. And I feel like if anybody earns that title, it would be Yes. This is really advanced stuff they're doing. And actually, it was so advanced that the drummer left. I think I mentioned earlier. I think it's kind of funny, though. Bill Bruford, he left Yes to go join King Crimson. And I just think there's something so funny about, oh man, being a drummer for Yes is so hard. I'm just going to go join King Crimson. Like, that'll be easy. Not exactly a band known for being simplistic or anything.
Yeah, I love King Crimson. So
Yeah.
it's probably my Core of the Crimson King is probably my favorite prog album.
Yeah.
But I have a weird history with this album, and the fact that Nick recommended Yes Fragile to me whenever we were in the dorms. And that was my first time listening to it out of the context of JoJo's Bizarre Adventure and memes on Vine. They would replicate the ending of JoJo's Bizarre Adventure Season 1, Phantom Blood, which uses Roundabout as the outro. So I didn't know what the song was because I only knew the memes. And then Nick recommended it to me. So I did listen to Fragile quite a bit, and I own it on vinyl, actually.
You do?
So,
oh man,
yes.
I don't even own it on vinyl.
Yeah, I found it at a thrift store.
I think this album's better than Fragile.
I agree.
Overall,
yeah,
Fragile's a slog sometimes. Like it's It's a good
I
album,
Roundabout,
but this is
yeah,
much more palatable, which is interesting because it has an 18-minute song on it, but it is definitely more palatable, I think. Because again, it's only 37 minutes long. I was amazed at how like quickly this album was just over with, and
Yeah,
it was nice. Like it's a nice listen, honestly.
I
yeah,
agree. I think it's better than Fragile as well. I think there's some. They're both very experimental albums in some ways, and I think some of the experiments on Fragile kind of don't pan out as well. But I don't feel like there's any wasted space in this album, which is so weird because there's like an 18-minute song. How can it not be bloated? But
yep. I agree. It's like pretty well edited. Like I don't think
Yeah,
there's really anything that I can think of to cut, which is pretty rare. But I agree that Fragile after Roundabout, like it gets real hit or miss. Roundabout is kind of like the song on the album. It's probably one of the best examples of just like one song driving people's knowing the album.
yeah,
Because
which has got to be like the opposite of what you want as a prog rock fan too.
yeah, and Roundabout's a great song, but this one is like a lot more cohesive in how it's all together.
most Yes fans will say their first, probably their original lineup, their first three albums are probably some of their best. And I think that their first two albums kind of, while they are good, are a little more unrefined. And this is the band at their peak where they've tightened all the screws and they know exactly what they want to do and they've got their sound nailed down.
Yeah, I agree. The thing about it is that it's not tonally the same throughout. Like there's actual moments where it's very minimal and it's just this guy singing like movement 3 Eclipse, where it's just him kind of singing. You might know it as I Get Up, I Get Down,
Yeah,
where he keeps on singing that.
that's one of my favorite things that they like keep coming back to on the album. Is just that vocal motif.
Yeah, me too. Well, what I think is really cool is, as far as I can tell, every time they come back to that refrain, there's a different harmonic context, there's a different rhythmic context. And I think that's part of why it doesn't feel so long. And that's a pretty rare thing to find in a rock song or a pop song, to have the same refrain repeated, but to change the chords you're playing on top of it and to change the rhythm of that, at least to that extent, which is really cool. I kind of wish people did that more. And it's also cool because in the book, Siddhartha keeps coming back to the river, and at different points in his life, it like means different things to him. And then later, that's like the spot where he ends up reaching enlightenment too. Or Siddhartha keeps coming back to the river, and a big part of what leads to his enlightenment is he meets this man on the river who tells him about all of the different like voices, quote unquote, that the river has. And I wrote down this quote while I was reading the book. Let me find it. Yeah. The river has many voices: a king, a warrior, a bull, a night bird, a woman giving birth, a sighing man, and 1,000 other voices. And I just think that reflects in the music as well, because you have all of these different like voices that are coming through. You're singing the same words, but changing the context of that. And I think that's really cool.
It goes back to Smile.
Yeah.
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 What river? The Chicago River?
Yes.
He's just the guy's walking by the river and he says, I'm walking here.
In Chicago, he says that.
Yeah.
Well, he's a New Yorker, but he's just in Chicago.
in Chicago.
Yeah, he's seeing the Mets play the Cubs. He says, "I'm walking here."
One of my other favorite parts about this album was the guitar line on "And You and I." I thought it was very, very nice, kind of folky, very pretty guitar line. Reminds me of Supertramp. You can definitely hear like some other bands in the '70s, like definitely heavily influenced by Yes.
Yeah, the one that I always thought of when I was listening to You and I is "Fooling Yourself" by Styx.
Yeah, Styx definitely draws heavily from Yes, I think, for sure.
Totally. I mean, there aren't that many bands at this point that are using the keyboard that heavily.
Yeah.
1972. So anybody doing that is definitely taking a page out of their book.
Yeah, and I think they're pretty early in the prog rock game too.
Yeah.
Yes is. There's definitely a couple albums that were the start of prog rock, but I think they definitely helped to define the genre.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're probably right.
Like I can think of a couple of groups like Pink Floyd or
Yeah, King Crimson released an album earlier.
Yeah, Jethro Tull is like 71 as well, 72 or 70, somewhere around there.
Yeah, I guess it's only a couple years off, but a year can be a long time in music.
Sure. But this is like this is pretty much right in the thick of like prog rock. I mean, you're talking like what, 68 to 74 probably.
Yeah, true.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely in that first wave for sure. I guess stuff like Rush is probably like a little later.
Yeah.
Definitely King Crimson was doing stuff before then. But Yes has
they
albums before this as well too.
Yeah, they didn't like invent the genre, but I think they definitely like if I'm thinking of prog rock bands, like Yes definitely comes to mind, probably like third. I don't know. I think they definitely helped define the genre and the sound. And this album definitely fits it as well.
It's cool how much this album was trying to be inspired by other things, like the book, and also a couple of different musical styles as well. I remember reading that. I think it's John Anderson. I think he was first inspired to write it when he was listening to Sibelius Symphony No. 7. And it's allegedly very heavily influenced by that. It's kind of driving me nuts though, because I've listened to that symphony multiple times over the past couple of weeks, and I don't hear it. I guess if we're going based on vibes, that kind of makes sense. Like it has a similar feel to it maybe, but melodically, rhythmically, I don't hear it.
It could be. I was gonna say it could be rhythmically, because a lot of times when you hear someone say like, "Oh, I was inspired by Bach or Sibelius or whoever," it's like talking about rhythms mostly.
Yeah, and maybe like just the build up, the tension release. This is definitely, it feels like a symphony. So I guess in that way, yeah. But some of the stuff I thought was easier to hear. It's supposed to be inspired by the album Sonic Seasonings, which is like, I guess, music concrete. The bird sounds at the beginning of the album, that like soundscape is very much inspired by that album. And then I think Mahavishnu Orchestra as well, which is more like a prog rock band. And yeah, it sounds pretty similar in that.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of good technical ability on this record. There's some times I'm listening to it and I'm like, damn, these cats are cooking.
Yeah. I thought it would be kind of fun to learn the guitar solo from the beginning of Close to the Edge or something, and it looks so hard. I don't think I could do it, or maybe if I worked really hard at it.
Even though you've just explained a lot of the lyrics, they still don't make a whole lot of sense to me. But I think that's just a part of the genre, you know?
Yeah,
People in the 70s were just saying the wildest stuff, just like full chested, completely undecipherable.
I get like a I'm smarter than you vibe from it too, like a little bit. Or like I know more about Siddhartha than the average person, and I'm gonna sing about how I know more about Siddhartha. And you get that a lot with prog rock. Like
Yeah.
it's a lot of times it's like I think I know more about like religion than the average person, and I know more about music than the average person. So I'm gonna sing and make some really good music to go along with it.
Yeah.
I don't know. I wouldn't say it's necessarily like a holier than thou kind of thing. I guess that prog rock in general is supposed to be like a more advanced musical taste, and definitely fans of the genre will perpetuate that stereotype, like, oh, you're not smart enough to get this. But I don't get that from Yes as a band. I mean, I think they're just very devoted to the themes and to the music. Kind of reminds me of like Brian Wilson in that way, just being very in your head and having that vision and wanting to create it.
Nothing compares to Brian Wilson. You take those words back.
I would say very few compare to Brian Wilson, but I would say Yes is.
I like the genre, the subgenre of songs that are just, you can clearly tell the writer just read a really good book and they're like, I'm gonna write a whole song about this, like Wuthering Heights by Kate Bush or Love Story by Taylor Swift, where she just talks about the whole like 11th grade reading list. But it's nice that, no, never mind. I was gonna say Siddhartha isn't on any like high school reading lists, but it definitely is.
Yeah.
Austin, you ever listen to The Book I Read by Talking Heads?
Let me look up the album cover because that's how I know.
It's on Talking Heads 77. That's a good song about, he's just singing about the book he's reading.
I do like Talking Heads. Yeah, I'd probably
I might pick that album some week because that's one of my favorites.
Yeah, that'd be fun. One thing that I think made a lot more sense after reading the book is just that refrain. And I get up, I get down. I feel like that is referring to this theme in the book of just, you need to have up and down moments in your life to really achieve your best self, I guess. And just kind of accepting that, and the seasons will pass you by. That's definitely I think that's the most literal. So I remember there's a quote, the narrator explicitly says, the years flowed by and nobody counted them, and just it goes through like his whole life in this short little book. So
Nick, if you had read the book before you listened to the album, though, and we didn't have Wikipedia, would you know that he's singing about Siddhartha?
No.
Because, like, half the time I can't understand the lyrics, and then the other half, like, if he just says close by the edge, down by the river, like, that could be anything, you know?
Sure.
Which I'm not necessarily, like, criticizing it. It just, like, I don't think
I
would know.
I enjoy. I don't think
it's
that
not bad.
the book is not required reading for enjoying this album.
Yeah, for sure.
I felt it was a pretty good supplemental material, and it did make the lyrics make more sense. At least some of them. Some of them still don't make any sense at all. I'm not gonna say, oh yeah, I know exactly what they're talking about this entire album now because I read this book. No way. But it increased my enjoyment of it, I think.
Do you guys want to get into favorites, hot and cold tracks?
Yeah.
Sure. How are we going to do it? There's 3 songs. Are we going to break it down by movement, or are we going to break it down by whole 18-minute song?
Honestly, I couldn't tell you. We can break it up by movement, but I don't know any of the individual.
I don't either. You know what? Do what you feel, Austin. I guess.
Okay. I prepared both.
Okay.
So
I'd like to hear both.
Okay. I guess, okay, never mind. I never figured out what my worst movement was. Okay. The best song is, I think we're all going to have the best song, which I think might be problematic. But it is, drumroll, and You and I, the song we've talked about the most. I actually wrote part 2, Eclipse, as the best. I thought it was a pretty good transition. I liked that it actually felt like an eclipse, and it's a pretty cool transition into both 2 parts. But I liked it. What about you? What about you, Max?
I also think "And You and I" is the best song on this album, and I don't even think it's close, to be honest. It's a great song. I added it to a playlist that I've been making lately, just of songs, and it just works. It honestly works well as a single. Just listening to it, even though it's 10 minutes long, it goes by really fast, and it's just a really nice song. I love the guitar part on it, like I said earlier. The lyrics, the keys, it all just comes together. And yeah, I don't know. I just thought it was. I'm not even saying the rest of the album was bad. I just think this song is really, really good, and I really enjoyed it. And it invoked more, because since I hadn't read Siddhartha, and I couldn't understand some of the lyrics on the rest of the album, it invoked more of a personal message to me than the other song. It's just cool lyrics. Something that says coming quickly to terms of all expression laid, emotion revealed as the ocean made, as a movement regained and regarded both the same, all complete in the sight of seeds of life with you. That's just very pretty. That was in Eclipse as well. That's a good part.
Hey, Nick, your turn.
I am really surprised that nobody else picked Close to the Edge as their favorite song. It's the title track, and I think there's a reason for that. That's kind of what the point of the album is supposed to be. Not that I dislike the other songs. I guess I feel like they're a little bit more just tacked on. They, wanted to make that song Close to the Edge, and then they filled out the whole LP. I'm not saying that those songs don't belong, but I don't know. I think it's probably one of my favorite songs ever. My favorite part, I think, is the organ solo, which, we haven't talked about that at all yet. I love that organ solo. I think it's just gorgeous.
Normally you need more than one organ to do any function.
Boo.
Yeah.
So a little bit of trivia, though. So I don't remember the details exactly, but the best quote unquote recording of that organ solo was actually lost, and they had to pick a different one, which is kind of too bad, I guess. But
coulda, shoulda, woulda.
Yeah.
So
what
now
about
it's time for the worst.
Yeah.
Let's get into the worst. I have the worst figured out. It's Close to the Edge, and it's because I don't want to listen to an 18-minute song that has a required reading list. It's one of those. It's whenever you watch a really mid Marvel movie, and you say wow, that wasn't that great, and then people are like, bro, you have to watch 3 series and 17 movies to understand it. But it wasn't horrible.
Man, I'm shocked.
Don't hate me, Nick, but I'm also gonna go with Close to the Edge, and the reason is because Siberian Cut Through is kind of a bop.
Oh, totally. Yeah.
It's a fun, because I was gonna, like, when I was listening to something for the first time, I listened to Close to the Edge, and I was like, that was a good song. And I listened to And You and I was like, that was a great song. And then I was looking, and I was like, well, the last song was only like 9 minutes, and the others were longer, so they're probably better. So I was like, the third one, they're probably going to end it like kind of mid. And then I was thoroughly pleased. It was a great song, great bop. We haven't talked about it a lot, but great way to end the album. I love the way the whole album ends, just generally. And so I'm gonna go with Close to the Edge, kind of by default, more than because it's a bad song. If there were more than 3 songs on the album, then I'd probably pick something else. But
Yeah.
or if I did it by movement, but I don't remember the movements.
Yeah,
I know what
it
you mean.
wasn't like, Close to the Edge can kick rocks. Like, it's fine.
I don't know, that is surprising though. I did not. I know I've talked about the book a lot and how that kind of augmented my experience, but I did not find that to be like required reading per se.
Yeah, no, because I didn't read the book, and I like it was good. I didn't even know it was based on a book.
Yeah. I just like I read the book because I liked the song, not the other way around. So I understand. It is really long. It didn't bother me, like,
I didn't even mind the length. Like, length aside, if this was 10 minutes long like the other songs, it would still be the third best song.
yeah, it's really hard to pick. I think I might say And You and I is my least favorite because, like you said, Siberian Katru is a bop, and I don't really want to put that last. And again, I feel like we say this every time. It's not because I dislike that song. I
Like,
love
I
that
can't
song.
believe
But if I
you
had to
would
pick
say
one,
how much you hate that song. I can't believe
Yeah.
it's like that's so rude.
yeah,
Rude to the musicians. It's rude to the fans.
yeah, yes sucks.
If you have any
Someone
hate
had
mail,
this.
you can send it to no reply at kellogg.com. Got that. I don't want to lose.
We can't lose sponsorship. We can't lose sponsorship. We need that Frosted Flakes money.
Yeah, well, they
Honestly,
probably have like drinks that they make too.
Oh yeah, for sure. They probably make like Snapple or something. I think that's Quaker, but I don't know. What are we? Where do we rank this?
do you want me to pull up our rankings so you can see how you ranked it previously?
Oh, I remember.
I don't need to see it. It's easy. This is going number 1 for me, baby. I love this record.
You're allowed to have wrong opinions, Nick. No one's
Yeah.
no one's taking that away from me. No, I really enjoyed this album. For me, it's going in my 4th spot,
Oh,
ahead of Vampire Weekend and ahead of You Don't Mess Around with Jim. And the reason I'm putting it ahead of Vampire Weekend is because I thought musically this was a very like cool and complex and well thought out album. Like, when I listen to music, I'm more in it for the music than the lyrics. I thought this was really cleanly executed and edited, and they set out they had a goal and they executed that goal. And the whole thing plays really well. It's definitely going in my repertoire of albums that I listen to. And yeah, so I'm going to put it 4th. Subjects to change.
so I am also putting it fourth. Above it in order is The Suburbs, Vampire Weekend, Doolittle, and below it is Smile and You Don't Mess Around with Jim. I really feel comfortable about the top 3. If anything, I might move Doolittle up if we ever reevaluate, which I've said every week so far. But
We'll have to do a reevaluation at 10 songs, I think, or 10 albums.
yeah, we'll figure it out.
Yeah,
We'll figure it out.
Okay.
Smile and You Don't Mess Around with Jim. Below it, Kick Rocks.
That's the That's the cutoff point for you.
Y'all are hating on Smile too much. It is an
It's
absolute.
in my second spot.
Oh,
No,
Or
third.
third now, I guess.
Third.
yeah. It is. It is an absolute symphony to God and symphony to the Americana, and it is amazing.
Yeah.
But we'll
Don't
delve into
cancel
that. I have a whole. I could make a whole PowerPoint presentation on why Smile is the
Ooh.
most influential album of all time.
Are we gonna make the reevaluation a PowerPoint? PowerPoint
A
episode?
PowerPoint battle? Sounds like a lot of video editing. I don't know.
True. Yeah, that doesn't seem like a good use of resources.
I don't know.
But I'll calculate who's in the lead afterwards, because
I guess I'm still just
sustainable.
I guess I'm just still at last. I gotta say I'm a little disappointed. I thought this would break through better for you all. I know. I guess I took a risk. I picked one you had never listened to before, and it is a little eclectic. But
I mean, I thought it was great. I think you're lucky I put it fourth, Nick. Like,
oh
honestly.
wow,
You could be sitting at
maybe.
You could be sitting at 5 and 6. Like, Vampire Weekend's a solid album, and if I listen to it again, I might change my mind. So.
Dare I say it? Dare I say it? Maybe you're just not smart enough to appreciate this high IQ album.
Yeah. Probably right.
Yeah.
Plebs.
All right, well, what do we got next?
Great music.
What do we got next week, Austin?
There's a lot of thought that's gone into this, as I think I've sometimes we'll talk to each other about what we're thinking about for the next episode, and I think I've given 4 or 5 albums that I might do. So I think the tiebreaker was really looking back and figuring out what haven't we covered. I picked an album that I thought was very revolutionary, and I think the artist doesn't get paid the dues that they deserve. They're an OG who really laid the groundwork for this game, and everybody talks about how influential they are. And I really think they're the full package. They do everything by themselves, and they're making big. Sorry, I'm laughing at Max falling apart on the other screen.
Is it Carly Rae Jepsen?
No, that would have been a good one.
Oh, okay.
I assume this is Kate Bush you're talking about, right?
So the album I'm picking is Hounds of Love by Kate Bush.
Ah, yes.
It's a great album that's had a good moment. She's having her moment in the sun right now with the release of Stranger Things, which I have not seen.
That might be it's like required.
Required watching.
You have to have either. So neither of you have seen Stranger Things.
I watched
season 1.
I watched the last episode of season 1 by accident. Like the last scene of it. So like I got the spoiler for season 1.
Okay.
But I watched none of it. I know that they made a season 4, so I know that those things must just keep getting stranger.
Yeah, probably.
But,
honestly, yeah.
And I think this season's the strangest thing because it's the finale. So that's about all I know.
Oh, there's gonna be another. There's another season in the books, a 5th season.
Wait, really?
Yeah.
Aren't they like 40?
That's it, though.
Aren't the actors like 30 playing like 10-year-olds?
Nah, they're like late teens.
Okay.
Yeah. I
don't
guess
know
I'm
if
like
watching
the
a whole
Stranger
show is worth
Things ambassador for us.
Yeah,
I'm up to date. So.
I'm not gonna watch it.
I don't think you have to at all. That's not going to enhance your appreciation of the song or anything. But it is cool that it's like cracking the top 10 again. That's pretty cool.
It was number 1 on iTunes.
Yeah. Oh, that's right. It was. Yeah.
Well, we're gonna be running up that hill next week.
I'm done.
Okay, we're
goodbye.
Hey everybody, thanks for listening. If you liked this episode, be sure to like and subscribe. Follow us on Twitter at HTWCL to see memes and updates on the show. And we'll see you next time. We'll be uploading every 2 weeks on Monday nights.